Colin, what about the characters of that team? Because I mean, we all know what good players we had. Apart from yourselves, we've mentioned like Paisley, a great keeper in goal. Pally and Mogger as centre backs, and am I guessing that Pally took your place as the sweeper? By the way, Colin, as you developed that.
No. I think it's one of those that what we described about early on when basically we had that group of, I think, 14 players, and Bruce had to mould a team out of it. So basically, it was like you get in the team where you can. Mogger and Pally, Pally was kind of, again finding himself a little bit. Mogger was a stalwart. You've got the, like Hammy said, even at such a young age, is one of the more experienced. Slav, who we knew could score goals. Archie, but what Bruce did is he just moulded. So that I ended up playing left back, because it was a flip of a coin between me and Gary Gill, who would play centre midfield. And Gary, when we were putting the team together, was better centre midfield player than I was. So my choice was, do you want to play in the team? There's an option. And obviously the answer was yeah, of course. So again, that was another adaptation for me. I had to adapt as a right-footed player who was now playing on the left-hand side. And so Bruce moulded that team. And within the moulding of the team, I think all the experiences that we had through that summer of '86 and then into the league, and let's not, again, I always say we speak of it as fondly as it has to be spoken of, but, we were runners up to Bournemouth, so we didn't win the league to get promoted back to the championship as it is now. And then, I mean, unfortunately for me, I was actually suspended for the Leicester game the season after, when we're getting towards promotion again. I got a suspension, so I was sat on the bench watching for the Leicester game, and I'd forgotten about what Hammy said. And I remember Bruce, and because I don't gamble, and I remember what Hammy said, exactly what he said. And we knew we had the 2 legs against Bradford, and then whoever the winners of the other thing, I forget who Chelsea actually played, but
Blackburn.
Was it Blackburn? But yeah, so we had 2 tough legs against Bradford, who were the next best team to us, if you like. Outside of
we didn't beat them that year.
No, exactly.
Henry in their team as their star player,
yeah. I mean, listen, they had some really good players. They had some really, really good players. And
Coops decided to miss that game as well.
And obviously, Hendy was red hot, and obviously, at that particular time, Hendy was playing as a right winger, and I was the left back. And Hendy used to twist my blood a bit. But it was tough. But getting to the end of that season and that big anti-climax on the Leicester game, and then, like Hammy said, to have to pick yourself up and go again. And I can't remember the time scale between the Leicester game and it might have even been the next Tuesday night or something. I can't remember. But to pick yourself up and then go to Valley Parade and try and get a result, which, again, we were just a little bit short, and then to bring them back and put in the performance that we did, and obviously the goal that Hammy scored to get us through to the playoff final or the 2-legged final against Chelsea was indicative of us. And I think Hammy will remember. So I spoke about the pitch. When we played against Bradford at Valley Parade, the pitch was dry and bumpy, and it didn't suit us. First thing Bruce did for the return leg was he got Ken the groundsman to soak the pitch. So the pitch was slick. It was a bit deeper and a bit muddy in places, but it was slick, and we knew we could play football better than Bradford. And I think, the goals that we scored and the performance that we put in on the night was, and again, that was just Bruce just thinking outside. We played on a really dry, bumpy pitch. We couldn't play how we wanted to. Bring them back to Ayresome Park, get the groundsman to soak the pitch, and try and make it as slick as we possibly can. And thankfully, we got the positive result to take us into the Chelsea game. And we did exactly the same at home to Chelsea.
If you remember before the Bradford game at home as well, we played with the same system, but you come back in because you decided not to play down at Valley Parade. Thank you very much. And Lozzie and I had to contain John Henry, who I told before the game, I ain't chasing you for 90 minutes. There's no way. And when you come back in, if you remember, Bruce put me back on left midfield.
Yeah.
But then 10, he says, whenever you feel it's the right time, we all move. We actually switched out into centre midfield. Benny went to left midfield. And that was a period Bradford didn't know what the hell had hit them. Don't know why, but it just basically threw them off a little bit. So it did. But yeah, he was very good at his coming up with his game situation, his game coaching, his game plans were sometimes fantastic. I think against Everton, Coops, didn't he bring the field in? Didn't he narrow it by like 5
it, yeah,
because of Kevin Sheedy and all them, and they were very good. Trevor Stevens on the right, Kevin Sheedy on the left, and he was like, nope, we don't need the wide players to be getting the ball. So he just basically brought the field in. So
they say it's a game of inches, and he literally took inches off the pitch to make that difference. He was a psychologist before his time, wasn't he? A sports psychologist.
Well, we all are as coaches. You learn, it's experience. What Bruce had is he had some fantastic experiences as a player with some fantastic managers. Brian Clough is a genius at psychology, and obviously Bruce had played under him at Derby. So a lot of the things that Bruce certainly spoke to me about, and I'm sure him and Hammy had many conversations over dinner and stuff. But I remember the conversations that he said, Cloughie. So I think even as a player, as an experienced player, as an international, when him and Toddy and etc. were winning the championship with Derby, they were learning. They were learning experiences of great people. And I remember, Bruce, all the managers that he worked for and under, despite his reputation as being a bit of a hard man in football and being able to look after himself, as was Toddy, they also were exceptionally gifted footballers. So they had the steel of the 70s, which them lads had to have. They instilled some of that, but they also instilled a lot of thinking into us. He always encouraged us to talk about football, always encouraged us to read about football, about different football people, different football managers. And at that time, if you think about how people have done it, about different sports, I remember him talking to me about coaches from other sports and things like that. So even as a young player, you're gaining experiences. So when you talk about psychology, it's all what they've learned. So good managers, the likes of the Fergusons, the likes of the Guardiolas, it's all mind games. You've got to convince the players to do what you want them to do, and you've got to encourage them. That, like Hammy said, you've got to encourage them and give them the belief that they can do what you're trying to ask them to do. And I think, and again, I was lucky that, again, Bruce took a shine to me and looked after me. I think in the period where we were starting to go and we were flying, I think from a personal point of view, I think I signed 4 new contracts in 3 years just because he was instilling belief. It was only another 20 quid a week or whatever it was, but he was just saying, you've earned this, you've earned this, you've earned this. And he probably could have given me the full 80 quid in the first one, but he was just making sure, like,
no, you ain't getting
just making sure I was kept reeled in, and I was getting little increments, but he would never allow me to get carried away thinking I was big time Charlie. That would never happen.
One thing I get Cripps say about Bruce with the books and stuff, because he started telling me I needed to read up books and stuff like that, and I just laughed at him. And but it's when he was in America, he says that's when he picked up the reading of the other like sports and stuff like that, and actually getting into the other sports. As he says, because when he was over here in Seattle, because I think he came from Seattle to us, and he said that was the time in his life when he started to open up to other sports and other coaching philosophies and how people did things differently and that kind of stuff. But talking about contracts, and I don't think many people know this, and I think Bruce, anybody part of that group, Bruce, I think, treated them like his son, but maybe in a different way, every single person. I know when we found out that I was going to struggle to ever probably play again, my contract was coming to an end, and Bruce came in. He came into the Nuffield Hospital and says, listen, he says, we've just got the news. It probably doesn't look good on you. He says, but why don't you sign this new 3-year contract? And I'm looking at him going, I mean, you've been drinking? And he never really drank. And he went, no. He says, what we're going to do, he says, I'm not going to give you a raise. You're going to stay on the same money. He says, but the 3 years takes you to the clause I'm going to put in this contract for you, which says you get your testimonial from this club. And not a lot of people know that to this day. And I'm telling you, the man, I think, took care of all of us in his own certain ways. Some of them still be moaning him and stuff that they didn't get enough. I never moaned for once, because you knew, I always thought deep down, he'll look after me. I mean, he will take care of us, because I got to know him really personally well and stuff like that. I'm not saying he gave it to me for that. I think he gave it to me because he felt bad for me as well, that I basically ended up giving my career that was sometimes my own stupidity playing when I really probably shouldn't have. But that's another story. But Bruce,
I've got to ask you about that because, Pete, I mean, I don't think not every modern day Boro fans necessarily know your story about 250-ish Boro games before. By the time you're 23, you played your last game at 23. You had to retire, I think, at 25, and I can't help but think you must feel a little bit like you were robbed of a big part of your career.
Yeah. I mean, actually, I played my last game when I was 23, Sheffield Wednesday away, and I should have never played that game. But that game didn't take me over the cliff edge to make me retire. It really didn't. I mean, I was still at the club for another 2.5 years after that. I suppose I wouldn't be human if I said I didn't feel bitter when it all happened, and I did. I don't think if you're a true, honest professional athlete, you don't like to be out anyway. Coops will tell you, Coops has been injured for lengths of times. Being injured it's a horrible feeling. You're basically I don't care who you are, you're just cast to the outside, and it's a long, lonely road and stuff like that. So mentally, you have to be just tough to do it. And even in this day and age, with everything they've got, I'd imagine it's still a tough road. So yeah, I felt bitter, but I married a good woman. I mean, she basically slapped me around a little bit and said, "Get your shit together, and what are you going to do now?" And in that time when I was injured, Middlesbrough just started training up in the gym with like schoolboys and stuff. And Bruce said to me, he said, "You're going to coach." And this was the part I didn't like when I lived with him. And I'm like, "No, I don't want to coach." And he's like, "No, you're going to coach." And I was like, "Oh man." And I'd go do it. And that was him probably telling me then. And and he actually tells me today, he says, "I knew you'd be a coach." He says, "Now, I knew you would be a coach of youth as well." He says, "Because there is no way I'd kill people in the draft." I've told Coops this many a time. There's no way I could coach men. I'd kill them. I really would. But the youth I like, because I'm not allowed to kill them. So, no, I mean, so you're supposed to leave kids alone. But he was brilliant. He's brilliant for me. I think I don't think anybody would say a bad thing about him that way along the line as well. But he's a great man. He really is.
Now, I mean, I'm thinking about 1986, and I believe I'm right in saying that so far Boro have only had 2 spells in their entire history since they joined the league back in 1899. They've only been in the outside the top 2 divisions twice in 121 years. The real chance that it might become 3 times over the next few weeks. I'm guessing that you're both following it as best you can and what's happening. Obviously really interested in your views, because I mean, it's Steve Gibson's the guy that was involved with the club chairman when you were there, and he's still in charge now, and he must be wondering, what he needs to do to try and get us out of this spiral downwards. Obviously, he's tried to.
I'll let Coops answer that, and I'll come in at the end, because Colin's been there on the coaching side of things as well with the club, and I think it's probably more important that Coops gives his opinion to that first, because I was on a chat last night, the Boro fan thing and stuff. I was on that for an hour, and people want to lace into certain individuals. And I mean, I've always been a pretty guy that's always been, I think, honest and told the truth. But I mean, there's a truth and then there's reality as well. I mean, and there really is. And I think people wanting to get after Steve is, to me, just absolutely crazy. It really is. But Coops, fire away.
Go on, fire away, Colin. I mean, what's your... Listen, you've been there. You've been a player. You've been a coach at this club. So you know about the challenges. But, we're at scary time now, aren't we? So...
Well, we are, I mean, I was, I think when Neil was appointed, I mean, first of all, I thought, again, Steve was very brave. And I thought at the time, probably the right thing to do, give Jonathan a go. Again, it's a similar scenario as when Steve left and Gareth took over after the UEFA Cup back in whatever it was, 2005, 2006. And yeah, so I thought, okay, good. I know Jonathan had been working hard with the youth, with Mark Tinkler and people like that behind the scenes. was working hard on his qualifications. So I guess Steve kind of went, well, I think because of the way football is now and how football management is, you can get, you know, and with all due respect to Neil, that's kind of where you are now. You can get people who just troll around job after job after job after job and do the same thing at every club. And, you know, with all due respect to Neil, he's had a fantastic career as a coach and a manager. So I think when Steve did it with Gareth, it was I'd really like to see someone that has the club's real interest be successful. Obviously, it didn't quite work out for Gareth, and I was part of the coaching staff. And I remember when we got relegated, sitting with Steve and him tearing shreds off us, and rightly so. You know, because we'd been in the Premier League for 10, 11 years, and then that status had been taken away. And then it was no surprise in the switches since. You know, he went with Gareth, and then like Amy said, you know, a couple more down the line, then gives Tony an opportunity to come back. But after what had happened with Gordon, after Gareth had left, you know, the money wasn't there. So Tony's brief, I think, was to cut wages, cut players, cut staff, which was tough because I think we all, myself included, and Hammy will as well, we all really, really wanted Tony to succeed. And like I say, I was more so because, you know, I'd worked with Gordon for the last, I guess, 6 months of that season. And Gordon had worked really hard. But, you know, the players that were coming into the club weren't good enough. That was a fact. And there was a lot of money went. Some of them weren't, some of them weren't. So Tony had a really tough job. So I think, and then if you see what's happened since, so after the local legend, as Hammy's rightly says, didn't work, then then Steve flips a total 180 and goes, well, we've never had a foreign coach, you know, and it worked. And then after Aitor, we went back to English again, and then it was young English, and then obviously we come around to the fact it didn't quite work with someone experienced like Tony, so then flip again and give someone who has a real love for the club and has played for the club and is from the town. But I felt sorry for Jonathan in the fact of the way it ended. I think he played some really good football. But the one thing I would say is that the real strength that I thought Aitor brought to the club was the steel of not losing. And everyone will forget the fact that they've bemoaned Aitor's football, but Aitor built his foundations on not losing. And going back to 1986, and we all talk about we were in a team that wanted to play good football and we would win. We also kept 26 clean sheets that year. So the most important thing in football is you don't lose before you win. And I think Jonathan went in with, and I did it at Hartlepool, you go in with delusions of how you want a game of football to look. You want it to be open, expansive, fast, attacking. The reality of football is you're not going to lose, and you've got to get results. And when you're in the manager's seat, you've got to win football matches. So I think it was a tough baptism for Jonathan. So I feel sorry for Jonathan first and foremost. Again, so no surprise that when it doesn't quite work with Jonathan, that we go back to vastly experienced with a short window. And on the day of Neil's appointment, I felt sure that there was no doubt that he would get enough points to stay in the league. I still feel that because he's only got to overturn 2 or 3 teams, all of which were 1.2 points above Boro. You know, Boro win tonight, for instance, you all of a sudden the 8th bottom and not 3rd bottom, or 6th bottom and not 3rd bottom. So, but it's going to be really tough. But I think the important thing for the club is to think this has to be classed as, it's go back to the time when I came back to the club, and the short-term strategy of bringing Terry in to work alongside Brian Robson. The short-term strategy of we have to maintain our Premier League status. It wasn't going the way Brian wanted it to. Terry comes in with a whole wealth of knowledge and experience and just brings everybody together and gets the job done. I still feel, though, Neil will do that. I do genuinely feel that. Hopefully, but the punters will be happy now if we just don't, if we stay out the relegation zone. That's the only challenge we have, nothing else. So put aside whatever the performances are going to look like. I watched the whole game very closely, which was obviously unlucky to lose 93, 94 minutes. But that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a war of attrition between now and the end of the season, but with only one goal: to have more points than the 3 teams who get relegated. And that's it. So it's going to be a really tough running because you're now down to 15 points to play for, third bottom at a time when the games are coming thick and fast for everybody. So it will be a war of attrition. And my only hope is that Neil manages just to galvanise the players that are there and just say, listen, this has got nothing to do with other than the next 5 games. That's it. He's obviously won one, which was brilliant against Stoke, then lost. It was tough again, I think, having an okay performance against QPR and losing to, obviously, Jordan Hugill, the Boro lad. But that's how life works. So the players have got to roll the sleeves up and basically they've got to stop feeling sorry for themselves in the position that they're in. They've just got to roll the sleeves up and say, we need one more point and the 3 teams that get relegated. That's it. And that is where the club is. Because a friend of mine who's a really big Sunderland supporter had been to one of the games recently, and he said the club has that feel of how Sunderland did when they went and went again, and they're still not back. So I think we just need to focus on the next 5 games, and that's it, nothing more.
How many?
I'm watching. I was never going to watch it. I wasn't. I don't know why, but I've started to watch Sunderland Till I Die, and it's giving me scary thoughts. It really is. It's like I'm staring like in a mirror. Just to follow up on Coops, I feel very sorry for Jonathan. I really do. I would have loved to have seen a similar scenario with even if it was Neil Warnock now back in the day, rather than Jonathan picking his own staff. I don't know if he picked them, but maybe bring in the older dog with the younger kid who is learning the ropes and in his way, but obviously it wasn't meant to be. And with Coops last night, I said a few things as well. People want to, if you're today a professional athlete, I would imagine that it's human nature, and we still have them feelings that you don't like to be slagged off. And I would imagine that the players are feeling that way right now. So they don't need to be ripped apart and stuff. But you've got to stand up and be counted. You have to. And what people are seeing on the TV is people want to know, are they trying hard enough, or do they care, or whatever. Well, I'd hope and pray they do, because there's one guy that's funding them all as well, and he's getting ripped apart. But I just hope over these next 5 games that they've got enough resilience to dig deep enough to know what it matters to the town. I mean, that's where it's really coming down to. They can move on if they want. If they get relegated, most of them probably will move on. But the club will stay intact and they'll move on as well. But we've got a chance over these next 5 games to do something. Let's not bank on Wigan, please. I mean, that's all I hear is, hey, we've got the Willy Wonka's ticket here with Wigan. What do we end up in the bottom 2? We don't have any golden tickets. So we don't need to be banking on other people's results. But my God, last night went for us. We should be bouncing today to Millwall. We should be bouncing down that motorway to say, hey, we've been given another chance with them results last night. No, I mean, and I think it's evident. No, I mean, I don't want to get into things. I mean, I've been looking at the stats. We only scored 40 goals or something like that. I mean, the stats are not great either, but we can change it. 5 games, 15 points is a lot to play for.
We're lacking, though. One thing that team that the 2 of you were in is it had several leaders, and we are lacking obvious leaders on that pitch. There's experience, but appears to be not obvious leaders there.
Football's lacking leaders, Dave. It's not just Middlesbrough. Yeah. All of football is lacking leaders because it's not something that's basically you can have a long and fruitful football career and not have to make any decisions for yourself anymore. And that's the difference.
It's too easy for them.
No, I'm not saying it's too easy, and I'm not just. And again, this is not a Middlesbrough thing. You know, I've worked with some of the elite players in the country, and natural leaders on and off the pitch are a rarer commodity than they once ever were. You can spot people with leadership potential, for sure. You know, and there's some of the players at the club who have, in my opinion, have leadership potential, and I'm sure Neil will be maximising them people as much as he possibly can to eke everything out. But you know, natural, you know, people like George, people like Johnny House, and people like Adam Clayton, you know, the people I would suggest somebody like a Britta Sombalonga who can score goals for fun at this level, you know, has had a really good football career. What you're looking for them is to then take the likes of Hayden Coulson, Marcus Tavernier, Dale Fry, and say, come on, we've got a knife edge we're on here, and we've all got to grow up, and we've got to grow up here, and we've got to make sure that this club doesn't disappear into League One. And that's no disrespect to the teams who are in League One, by the way. But as I say, my very close friend, who's a massive Sunderland fan, has seen some similarities and in the way it's been kind of panning out over the season. And I just hope and pray that whatever Neil decides to do, he utilises all of the people that do have leadership qualities, and whatever they are. They don't have to be shouters and screamers to be a leader. You've just got to lead by example sometimes. But we need a few on the pitch for sure.
It's modern day football though, Coops, right? I mean, the leadership thing. I remember asking Bruce once, just going back to Bruce, and it's about Coops actually. When we played Coventry in the Division 1 game, and everybody remembers it was a barn burner. It was like 4-3. Ben scores a hat trick. Morgan was sick, and Morgan and I were room partners for years with another odd couple relationship. And I remember when we got back, and everybody's like euphoric and all that stuff. And I asked Bruce, I says, "Can I ask you a question?" He went, "Yeah." I says, "How come I wasn't captain?" And he went, "What?" I says, "Well, you made Coops captain. How come I wasn't captain?" He says, "You don't have to be captain." And I went, "Well, I'd like to have been captain." And he went, "No, you didn't hear me. You don't have to be captain because you're already one of my captains anyway." And I'm like, "You never told me that before." And it was really funny because it made me realise after that, the armband didn't mean a thing to me. It really didn't. He actually said to me, he says, "Every time I pick 11 players, I have about 7 captains on that field." And I could have named them. You know what I mean? And that's the difference. I think is back then we took responsibility. Now I think it's hard for them because they don't want to get their feelings hurt. And that's what it really comes down to. And I mean, just stand up, be counted. Well, you're not going to get any. We all know that people in Middlesbrough, the town of Middlesbrough, just want to see people roll their sleeves up and fight. I mean, if we go down with a fight, then even though we'll still be a little bit annoyed and perturbed about it all, I think let's go down at least fighting. Let's not go down at all. Let's put the fight up first and get some points in the bag.
Most important. It's all that matters now. It's all that matters. It's getting over the line now. That's it. And yeah, I think there's probably nobody better in football than Neil at the moment to get that. And like I say, even after the Stoke game, which is obviously a nice little lift coming in and getting a victory away, and then obviously the Hull game, the late lose, and then the 1-0. We're not a million miles away, and as I say, I still genuinely believe that Neil Warnock will get enough points.
I just hope with the 3 o'clock kickoff today, though, that Neil's actually gone on the bus and he's not got his bike going down to Millwall because he might get there Saturday.
Yeah, strange. Wednesday 3 o'clock kickoff. I know it's mad.
What was that? What's that all about?
I know.
We'll be putting this out. The bad news is we're going to be putting this out after the game, so
yeah.
Everybody will know what's gone, either whether it's gone well or badly, and let's hope that everybody's smiling and thinking, well,
exactly.
Now, listen, we haven't got, we've run out. We could listen to you all day and talk footy all day, but one thing, Colin, I've got to ask you. I know the Finlay Cooper Fund, that did so brilliantly over the years and raised, was it £650,000 over the years for so many different children's causes. It came to an end last year, I think it was, back end of last year. And I know it's just been in the news recently about a charity called Maine. They've opened a new centre and it's called the Finlay Cooper Centre. That must make you so proud as a legacy for the fund. And I know the Teesside Philanthropic Foundation have a caravan that gives holidays for the families with disabled children. Again, that's got the Finlay Cooper Fund name on the outside. That must make you feel really good that Finlay's name's is living on in that way. I'd like to give you the last word, just to how are you feeling about the
exactly that. Extremely proud. With a tragic event in our lives, to have done something good. First and foremost, Finlay's name is able to live on outside of family and friends. The main thing was something that was brought to us, and it just felt right. because we spoke to the people at Maine who do a wonderful job. And, you know, we've been lucky enough over the 12 years that we've been going from my retirement to now, if you like, to have been able to do some lovely things. You know, the people of Teesside and beyond have been unbelievably generous in helping us get to the point that you said, 650, almost 700 grand, and being able to try and help people and families and children at certain points in their life has been a huge cathartic thing, I think, for the whole of the Cooper family, really. And when we had long conversations about life and where we were, it was kind of the charity Maine kind of came to us, and it kind of sat in the right place because they were doing some wonderful work down on the riverside, and they were trying desperately to expand, to have more space for more children, to help more families. And we were asked, because we wanted to, you know, with the money that we had left, we wanted to have 2 or 3 projects that we could throw a little bit more money than we'd ever thrown anything else before. And then when Maine took us to the building in the Thormsby and told us they were going to try and acquire that building, well, again, you talk about how things fit. So basically, the building in the Thormsby Marketplace is a stone's throw from the riverside where it all started. North Thormsby is also the home of my in-laws in Middlesbrough. They were born and brought up in North Thormsby, or my mother-in-law anyway. My father-in-law's a South Bank lad. So that all fit perfectly, and they've now just acquired the building, which is amazing. They were very keen that it was going to be called the Finlay Cooper Centre. They deal in autism. Obviously, you know, we go back. Finlay wasn't ill when he died. So they deal with autistic children and their families, which is amazing work that they do. And then, as you say, the lucky bit is, you know, so we helped them purchase the building. And then the caravans at Filey, with one of our own and one alongside the Teesside Philanthropic, with obviously, because Lee Bramley's one of our trustees and Lee's part of the Teesside Philanthropic as well. So to have them on site for families to go and have a holiday, and some of the stories that we've been told, the families that have already been there, it just melts you. It melts you. So I think the honest, deep down thing is, Dave, is that we've from a tragic thing that happened in our lives, we've managed to do something good in his name, and it allows his name to live on in the centre of Middlesbrough forever, which for me as a father and for Julie and the girls and all of our extended family, I think no bigger tribute could be paid to him than what we've been able to do. So yeah, it's been an amazing 12 years to be able to do it and to finish the way we did with the 3 projects, you know, because we've got a long association with Daisy Chain in Norton as well, which we had a project with Daisy Chain as well. So some of the things that we've been able to do have been amazing, and to allow.
It's been awesome to watch it develop from that, you know, initial idea when you first announced it, and you probably thought you were going to might bring in a few grand.
Yeah,
good, and you know, that'll be nice, and yeah, it just and I know that Lee Bramley, who you mentioned, Graham Fordy and Nick Waits have been rocks for you as well in terms of helping it all make happen. So I think it's great to hear that summary of the legacy that has been left in Finn's name there. And I think you should all be very proud of yourself for what you've been.
Oh, we're extremely proud, and obviously, you know, with the help of the guys who you mentioned, they've been amazing, and as have the people of Teesside and our extended family through football, you know, from Nottingham, from time down in southeast London as well. We've got extended family and friends who've all been super supportive of the charity from day one. And as you say, from my 2-minute cameo as a centre forward against Kievo, and I think the club donated us, I think, 8,000 quid. That was the first starting point where we could start doing things. And from that £8,000 seedling to get to, you know, almost $750,000, with only the 5 of us with support of the whole of football and Teesside in particular. Obviously, it's been a huge pleasure, and when we had the long discussion about bringing it to an end, obviously, Finley would be 20 years of age now. So unfortunately, he's a young man, not a kid anymore. And that's what felt it was the right thing to do, because, we were always been supporting children in their families. Whereas the young man whose name we started this in would be a 20-year-old young man now. So so it's been amazing to be able to do it, for sure.
Well done, Colin.
Fantastic.
Well said. Gary, Colin, it's been absolutely pleasure talking to you and catching up with you. Unfortunately, we really do have no more time. We'll be going off to watch the Boro match, no doubt, wherever we are.
It won't be in the pub. Not Scotland.
So that's all we've got time for on Teeslice's Boro Backtrack this week, in association, as always, with Domino's Teesside, branches right across the region, and the best place, of course, for pizza. So our thanks for your time and sharing your memories to Gary Hamilton, to Colin Cooper. Been brilliant hearing from you guys. Join us next week on Teeslice's Boro Backtrack, when we'll be joined by more Boro legends. We look forward to seeing you then. And remember, there's plenty of our past interviews to see on Teeslice's Facebook page, or indeed via YouTube. Simply search Boro Backtrack and see them all there. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.
Cheers, Dave.